Joe stops another J driller, and Mark has to fight off the coquina clutch. It's reapplied, and Mark goes out at 14 minutes and 26 seconds. And dude, they cut to Mark's children, and there's one of them holding one of the other kids. Dude, this was like the saddest finish. It was so sad. It was so depressing. And then Joe goes up to Mark, and you think he's going to attack him, but he does shake his hand. And Mark is left in the ring. He gets a standing ovation, and he goes to his family, and they play his theme. Listen, I think Samoa Joe is awesome as their television champion, but I really question building this program up when this is the outcome. And yes, okay, maybe down the road, Mark is going to win. I think this was the time for him to win. Like, it's so fresh in everyone's memory. I just felt like this was almost a layup of what you would want to do. Like, I left this one with just like, it just felt so depressing, the end of it. And that shot of like his kids, like, are consoling one another.
Yeah. Certainly questionable. Absolutely. Yeah. This one felt like it was the surest bet on this entire show, and they did not go there, but they certainly set it up, to lead you to think that this was going to be a sure thing with the way that the family was ringside, and I think just the overall story and just the vibe of it all. I want to reserve judgment on where this might be. Maybe several months from now. I have to think that Tony Khan is going to set something up big for Mark Briscoe, and that this was only a first chapter. And again, like with the Sami Zayn situation, you can argue if they might have missed the boat. I personally feel like there's still, like, you haven't necessarily. Like, I feel like, and again, it's all dependent on the TV, what they do with it. I mean, if this sets Mark Briscoe on a path where he's more determined than ever to beat Samoa Joe, and it has to be Samoa Joe. I don't think it could be anybody else because Joe beat him here. Then maybe it'll be worthy of a loss for him to finally win it at a Death Before Dishonor or something like that.
I don't doubt that they have a long-term plan, and Mark getting that big win. I guess it's just if that is ultimately the better choice to do this long-term story versus something that just would. I can also argue the idea of, I know that Tony seems very tied to ending your show with your world championship, but like that did seem to be the biggest complaint, was that there were a lot of like down finishes for this show that maybe you close then with the ladder match and something, and you're going off with like Mark Briscoe presenting the tag belts to the Lucha Brothers with the Kingdom out there.
Well, I certainly thought Eddie was going to win if Mark Briscoe wasn't, and the fact that they both lost, I think creatively was an interesting choice. And I say interesting rather than bad, because I do, again, want to reserve judgment to see the type of storytelling that it sets up. I will say the scene that at the end of this, I think elevates Joe, to a pretty dastardly level. And you would question like him just kind of going for the handshake and that almost like a babyface reaction at the end if that was the case. But I think it's the type of like outcome that Joe as a heel really benefits from. And if ultimately Mark can take that value from Joe, well, then I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I just think like this was a show about like building up two really strong heel champions in Joe and with Claudio. And to be quite honest, like I wouldn't even necessarily be advocating taking the belts off either. I think both are on good runs at this point. The issue becomes like Mark Briscoe and the role on this show that they had noted was going to be, dedicated to Jay and one that I just felt like the timing of this, I just wonder if it was like the right call to go with this. And there's a time to build heat. And then there's also times that I think you want to give your audience that big celebratory moment on a big show when you're only doing 4 of these pay-per-views a year. And I don't think Shibata winning the Pure title was your big celebratory moment that this crowd leaves the arena with. And I think you do want to have that for your audience too, especially when you're not coming back 4 weeks later with another show.
Yeah, that's certainly no substitute. I suppose, I continue to ask though, like, okay, let's say Mark Briscoe won. What do you do for the next several months? He just defends?
It's Mark Briscoe in his first singles championship run. And now it's like you're entering this whole new phase of your career.
I guess personally, I don't know if that's more interesting than seeing him build up to another challenge against Samoa Joe and then ultimately winning it. I don't think the sympathy will be any less. Like several months from now at Death Before Dishonor, I hope the family gets to come back if he does win. If he challenges again and loses again, then maybe I might have a bit more concern. But I because like we haven't necessarily had much ROH TV. At least with like a Mark Briscoe telling a deeper story. Again, I'm just open to seeing what he's going to do.
Yeah, listen, I'm not negative on this in the sense that I think like this was like I do believe like in the end Mark Briscoe will be in a like
hope so.
He will get that big win. I'm pretty confident in that one, but we will see like the timing of it all. They didn't like drop character with Dominic. They kept the story going, but I just feel doing some kind of attack or setting up a match, I just don't think the Hall of Fame is the place to do it.
I don't think they were ever going to consider that. I think as much as like we might question the validity of the Hall of Fame, to them, it's a very real evening for their colleagues to give heartfelt, real speeches about all they've accomplished in their careers. And I don't think they were going to jeopardize that in any way. This was the most you're going to get. And I thought it was very effective. It's all you needed was something like Judgment Day refusing to stand up when everybody else in the arena was for Rey Mysterio and then leaving mid-speech. A man leaving his father's Hall of Fame induction speech. I mean, what a slap in the face. And I thought it was probably like it's more effective than a traditional professional wrestling beatdown.